A very good morning to you. If you want to know the direction in which the country is moving, if you want to know the line in which the country is moving, you have to watch Newsline. You're watching the correct channel. This morning I have with me Mr. Faraz Shaukat Ali. A very good morning to you.
Joy, good morning to you, Charles.
How are you doing this morning?
Excellent, and how are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Shall we get on to it then?
Indeed, absolutely. Let's have a look at the papers.
The papers, the island says MS predicts SLFP will win future polls. Now, for us, they had their 64th anniversary convention yesterday in Polonnaruwa,
Yes.
and they have had a successful one, in my opinion. What do you have to say?
Well, it's an absolutely marvelous photograph. Kamal Bogada from the island has got this brilliant photograph. It shows a beaming president, two presidents, President Sirisena and President Rajapaksa. And to me, this photograph captures the essence of what is required today in this country, which is unity. And President Sirisena has shown some humility in victory and has made all the right moves to accommodate President Rajapaksa. And yesterday, when President Rajapaksa walked in to the convention, which had already got underway, he was met with a spontaneous standing ovation, which again goes to show that people have acknowledged and do acknowledge the important role that President Rajapaksa has made to the contemporary history of this country. And President Sirisena has offered him all that acknowledgement. And so it's beautiful, lovely, and it augurs well for what is required in the country. National unity, reconciliation. Great photograph, wonderful day.
Now for us, the country today is an important day for the country, because in the important day for the president, it's his 64th birthday today.
Indeed. So I think we should, on behalf of the channel, we should wish President Maithripala Sirisena a very happy birthday to you, sir.
In other sense, the parliament is to convene today, and they are going to take up a debate on the increasing of the number of cabinet ministers.
Absolutely, and again, a very important day because there is some consternation that the government of Ranil Wickremesinghe are trying to have an increased size cabinet in the cause of a national government. There are various opinions on this, and when our guest joins us this morning, we shall discuss this in some depth.
Now for us, the other question is, now they have taken quite a long time after they got elected to swear in a new cabinet, which will be done tomorrow, the 3rd of September. The cabinet has taken quite a long time to be sworn in. What do you think of that?
Well, Chaturanga, there is a saying that gentlemen are never in a hurry, and there is no indecent hurry to have appointed the cabinet. The Prime Minister, Mr. Wickremesinghe, has waited a very long time for the opportunity of having a full term in office. He has been almost has a name for himself as the temporary Prime Minister, but not so in this time. He has got all the right ingredients, and so he's, after waiting so long and having fought a major battle over the years to remain as the leader of the United National Party, 2 weeks is absolutely nothing for Mr. Wickremesinghe.
Now, the island also has focused on this point, the question I'm going to ask you next, in its front page. Who will be the opposition leader of the new parliament?
Well, democracy is democracy, and that is what we practice in Sri Lanka. Now, part of democracy is that you can't be the government and the opposition all rolled into one. Unless, of course, there is a true national government where there is no opposition, like in Britain in the 1930s and in 1945 as well. So, here we have a situation where 57 members of the SLFP have signed a declaration that they would back the call for Mr. Kumar Welgamat to be the leader of the opposition. But that's a little bit odd, because the SLFP have signed an agreement with an MOU with the UNP. And so just because some of these members are not have not been given any position in government does not mean that they can then sign it and say, well, we are sitting separately. If they wish to do that, then they must break away from that party, from the UPFA or from the SLFP, and then form an independent group and sit on their own, and then lobby the Speaker, Mr. Karujaya Surya, and say, well, we are the largest group in opposition. That would be fine. But then do they want to break ranks from their party, either the SLFP and or the UPFA? Conversely, and rather oddly, we must remember that the United National Party has got 106 seats, and they are not all having positions in government. So is it not fair then to say that the UNP members who don't have position, they may break away and they may sit together and say, well, we are the biggest group. So all this is a little bit of a misnomer. There has to be an opposition. We must follow democratic principles, and if there is no true national government, then quite frankly, Mr. Sambandhan from the TNA should be the leader of the opposition, because the TNA is, whether we like it or not, the third largest force after the main other two parties.
On that note, let me move on to the Ceylon Today. The Ceylon Today reports that Supreme Court unanimously rules no justifiable reason to arrest Tiran Alas. Now, for us, is this an important headline? What do you think of the Supreme Court's decision to not arrest Mr.
Well, we mustn't pass judgment on the Supreme Court. However, there is a profound belief now that the public at large have a growing sense of acceptance and confidence in the judiciary, and that is very, very important, because remember, the Supreme Court is the last port of call for every citizen in this country. You really never know when you will call upon the Supreme Court to decide on your fate, on your life, on your business, whatever it is. And it is important when that happens that you have the confidence that you're going to the Supreme Court, which is not tainted and which is impartial. And it's good that this feeling that the Supreme Court is now getting more acceptable to the people.
Right. In similar manner, the Ceylon Today says that Ranil Wickremesinghe, Prime Minister, is to visit India for a rather short visit to India. He's going to take his first state visit as the Sri Lankan Prime Minister.
Indeed, since becoming Prime Minister, Mr. Wickremesinghe has a long love affair with the people of India and its leaders, and in the south and so on. He has very important friends and who have supported him long and hard, and they've been steadfast in their support. One Indian businessman from the south told us that our leader is now in power, and we are coming to Sri Lanka with our investment, and that's excellent news for our country. And all the best to Mr. Wickremesinghe in his ventures there.
At this moment, I think I would be failing in my duty if I don't mention that the Sri Lanka Police is to celebrate its 149th anniversary today. Faraz, anything to add?
Yes, it's wonderful that today they've come so far. The police provide a very important function in our society. They are much vilified. There's always claims and counterclaims about the police. The FCID are doing all they can to try and eradicate and address all these issues of corruption, financial crimes. The CID are doing that. The police are investigating other important cases, and like Wasim Tajuddin. And in between all this, we hope that the police will, on this very special day for them, hope that they will not forget the people like Pergit Ekneligoda and of course Lasantha Wickrematunge. We mustn't forget them, but congratulations to the police force.
Moving on, the Daily Mirror says that the paddy storm, the headline for the Daily Mirror is the paddy storm at Mattala. Now yesterday, Hambantota, the Mattala area was a bit tense. The police had to intervene and sort this issue out. Now, what do you think of the Mattala airport being used as a storage facility for paddy?
Absolutely disgraceful. there is no earthly reason why Matala Airport's cargo section needs to be used to store paddy. This is a failure on the part of the Paddy Marketing Board, because there's the other storage facilities are full because they haven't been able to, or they haven't sold the old stock, and now they find that the new stock's coming in. And what's important here is, instead of moving, if they had no other choice and they had to put it in the cargo terminal, that's fine. However, instead of doing it that way, taking the new stock of paddy directly into Matala Airport, what they're actually doing is that they are taking the old stock from various other centres, about 6 other centres, and taking those stocks into Matala Airport, and then bringing the new stock into 6 different places, an additional cost. And also, it's a great pity that Matala Airport hasn't been given a chance. The marketing department...
But Faraz, on that note, now, the Matala Airport was declared open, if I'm not mistaken, on the 18th of March in the year 2013. But right after 2 years, on the 30th of April in 2015, this was shut down to passengers. Do you think, there was 2 years, do you think that it was not given a chance?
It wasn't given a chance because, very, very unfortunately, towards the end of the Rajapak's tenure, they got involved in calling for elections, and their focus shifted on political matters rather than these commercial matters. We have to remember that Matala Airport, the second airport, is an international requirement according to ICAO, which is the organization that controls civil aviation all over the world. The second airport was first mooted by none other than Ranil Wickremesinghe. He was going to have it somewhere down south in Matugama, as part of his plan to develop the south coast. The only difference is that we now have an airport in another place. But it's a great pity that this government appears not to want to give this airport a chance. It's 2 hours striking distance from Alla, from the the wildlife safari parks and the coast and various beauty spots. It's very convenient for a foreigner to come into Matala and then explore Sri Lanka. With the new network of roads, which President Rajapaksa paid so much of attention to, Matala must be given a chance instead of dismantling all the air conditioning and leaving it to rot in the weather.
Now for us, the Daily News has also headlined resistance to paddy storage at Matala, but I want to focus my attention to another headline which the Daily News has. It says SLFP needs radical transformation, a statement by the President. Now we know that President Maithripala Sirisena has made very bold statements when it comes to addressing the public, addressing the party, and even addressing the parliament. Now this is once again a very as the headline itself says, a radical statement.
Well, it is President Sirisena has the knack of pushing his finger at the right button, and he understands that the SLFP does need some transformation. In fact, they should practice reconciliation within its ranks, because then they can explain that the SLFP is not just for one community, but actually it is a party of choice for all communities. There is some belief that the SLFP have been a bit partial in those terms, but I think when you introduce our guest, he'll have
I think it's Faraz now time to introduce our guest for this morning. We have Mr. Rusiripala Tennakon, political analyst. A very good morning, Mr. Tennakon.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
Oh, fine. How are you?
Good morning,
good.
Rusiri.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
So, Mr. Rusiripala, getting into the question straight away now, the President says that the SLFP needs radical transformation. Do you agree? Do you disagree, and why?
Most certainly, I agree, because in making that statement, I think His Excellency gave a very wide sense to that statement. It is not in a sense of a sort of a parochial thing where you iron out the differences inside the party, but his view on reconciliation was much more oriented towards national reconciliation. Reconciliation, as Mr. Faraz said, reconciliation among the different communities in this country, which is much needed priority in this country.
Indeed.
So he focused very well on that, and we must take it in that broad sense, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Rusiripala, today in Parliament they are going to debate the issue of an enlarged cabinet. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, it's going to be a very, very important event, I should say, in the history of this country, because we have not heard of a national government in this country. Although we have heard of national governments in the political history of other countries and in the general political history globally, but this is the first time that Sri Lanka is going to have a sort of form the basis for a national government.
Yes.
And in that sense, we are very much bound by the constitutional provisions leading or paving the way for that national government formation. So we will see how the legislature will today debate this issue, you see, within the framework of the constitutional provisions.
Well, the 19th Amendment is, in my view, quite clear. It says that where the majority party has got a majority in Parliament, that means with the magic 113, then they are limited. 30 cabinet ministers and 40 non-cabinet. However, the Constitution also talks of the need, if there is a need for a national government formed by the majority party, that this will be formed by the majority party with the other parties. And the Sinhalese version says Paksha. So of course Paksha could obviously means more than one. It doesn't mean all though. And the word all isn't there. I would have thought that the President may have sought the advice of the Supreme Court on this, to interpret this little, what appears to be an anomaly. But can a national government, in your view, have an opposition?
Well, the national governments we have heard of and we know of have not had oppositions. So they have been formed at times of national crisis to resolve national issues by subordinating the interests of the constituent parties who are joining into the national government.
So country before party.
Exactly.
Right.
But I don't see such a similarity in this instance. In the first place, we have not declared what the crisis is. Why all should get together, leaving aside everything else, with no oppositions, suppressing the democracy to that extent, to some extent, and then, well, agreeing to subordinate your own party interests.
Can we say that the crisis is national reconciliation? Isn't that the crisis?
Well, if that is so, then there is another very important thing that follows up immediately. That is, there must be agreement between the parties towards that objective. Making a statement that we need reconciliation and we are working towards that, it is of course to be something to be expected, that we are all happy that it is going to happen. But has it been accepted and agreed upon? This is where the issue is.
But then I also have this, if you remember, President Rajapaksa is credited with having ended the war on terrorism. He didn't have a national government. In fact, he only had a very small majority, and the first few months of his rule was marked. In fact, I remember that once he came in, he wasn't very sure whether he'd be able to pass the budget. And so he embarked on whatever he did to have the numbers. So he didn't have a national government.
I think it's a very important thing. If what is contemplated is something like what the former president did in this country, so in inviting the opposition to join his government, join the ranks of the government, and forming a very stable government.
Indeed.
And if that is the situation that is contemplated right now, I don't see any difference whether you need a constitutional cover to call it or brand it as a national government. He has already formed one, and he has functioned, he has carried on the affairs of the country under such a government.
Indeed.
But if I may, for us now, what happened when the 100-day national government was formed? Was there political turmoil? Was there international intervention? Was there economic turmoil in the country for the national government to be formed?
But was it a national government? It was only a temporary government of 100 days.
Which went on for a bit more than 100 days.
Yeah, 100 days.
And it was called the national government. Is that what they are going to do now? Is it
only a label? Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly.
This is the nomenclature that is relevant in this at this moment. You know, you are going to call it a national government or you call it a coalition government. It doesn't make much of a difference.
Excepting if you call it a coalition, you'll have to only have 30 plus 40.
Exactly. Is it as far as it is not a ruse to circumvent the provisions in the constitution to enlarge the cabinet? It is okay calling by any name, but my issue for us is, this is a country constitutionally accepting that the country can carry on with a cabinet of 30 cabinet ministers. Now I'm at a loss to understand why, when other parties join, you can't carry on the country's affairs with 30 cabinet. Why? Where is the difficulty? What is the difficulty?
Actually, it would have been so much better if there was no provision to increase, to give Parliament the opportunity to increase the size of the cabinet and the non-cabinet members, because we go back to this issue of trading on the conscience vote, and this is the whole issue here. In Britain, in Westminster, a place which the Prime Minister himself is fond of quoting, Westminster-style politics, as he calls it. Well, in the Westminster-style politics, members have the right of the conscience vote, to vote according to their conscience. But when they do so from sitting on their side of the benches. But they'll vote with the other side if their conscience so dictates. But that then doesn't result in them being offered some position in the other side. I can hardly see Mr. Cameron making such offers on the other side. But in Sri Lanka, when you vote with the government, you do so because you are getting some form of favor. You are accumulating further power, something. Or your party members are being made chairman and so on and so forth. It's a whole package. So how can you sell your conscience?
Or look at it in a different way, Faraz. Does it mean that we are not ready to form a national government if additional cabinet portfolios are not created and offered? Does it mean that?
I think absolutely that's your point.
Exactly.
I think that's the point.
Now for us, on that note, the cabinet is, as we said, to be sworn in tomorrow. Do you have any speculation on the portfolios? You're well connected inside the parliament, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, we hear stories in our life as journalists and so on. It'd be interesting to see. We have the chairman of the United National Party, Mr. Malik Samaravikrama, making his maiden entry into Parliament. A great friend and confidant of the Prime Minister, of course. And we understand that Mr. Samaravikrama, having come in on the national list, is going to be made the Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade, or the other way around.
Now, the General Secretary of the SLFP, Duvendra Disanayake, has said that there is no dispute between the United National Party and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party when it comes to the allocation of ministries to both parties. Now, does this mean that the both parties, when it comes to a national government, will have a smooth road ahead, or do you see any turmoil that is in the future?
What's the saying, Chaturanga? There's a saying, the road to hell is paved with the best of intentions. So perhaps we should invite young Duvendra Disanayake onto our show one of these days and ask him to expand a little bit more on these matters. If there is no problem, and if there is an understanding, they could have split the 30 and the 40 amongst themselves and carried on. It would have saved the country money, your money, in terms of expenditure and wastage. There really is no need to have 90 people. We are, after all, a small country, and we are a tiny blip in the whole scale and scheme of things. Don't you agree, Rusi?
Well, I look at it this way. There is more a compulsion than a need for the compulsion rather to form a joint front. Otherwise the government can't carry on. Right. So everybody, all parties, particularly the major parties, are compelled to come to some understanding to form a government.
And that's very important what you're saying, because we must remember that Mr. Wickremesinghe's United National Party didn't win the majority. They won the election. They only got 106 seats. And they had to turn to none other than President Maithripala Sirisena to bolster the numbers. And in my view, therefore, there is a legitimate understanding that this government is actually President Maithripala Sirisena's government.
Exactly.
And that Mr. Wickremesinghe is but his CEO to carry out what is required.
Right, for us, Mr. Usripal, as the final question for both our gentlemen today. Now, as I said earlier, the Prime Minister is to visit India, and I think you told me this morning that former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga is
indeed,
to meet Narendra Modi.
Going to India to meet Mr. Narendra Modi is what the grapevine says. But having said that, it would have been nice to have seen President Kumaratunga also in Polonnaruwa yesterday, and that photograph would have been all the more prettier if she too joined President Sirisena and President Rajapaksa and let bygones be bygones. Surely that is one of the cornerstones of national reconciliation.
Well, the participants were told, consoled that by the information that Mrs. Chandrika Kumaratunga was out of the country, and that was the reason for her not attending the conference yesterday. So the House accepted it.
As we can excuse if ever there was one, is what my take would be on that.
Yes. Right, Mr. Faraz. On that note, let me first of all thank Mr. Usripala Tennakone, Senior Political Analyst, for being here with us today on our show on Newsline. And I think before we wrap up, Mr. Faraj Shaukat Ali as the quote for the day.
Yes, on a day that Parliament is debating the increased size of the Cabinet and so on, I thought I'd come up with this, which was sent to me in the early hours of this morning. If you want something in your life you've never had, you'll have to do something you've never done. Have a nice day. Take care and God bless.